Hi, everybody. This is Mandy, Mandy Speaks Up podcast. I am really excited for today because we're just going to be having an amazing conversation about those. It's going to be great for those that have experienced any kind of a toxic, traumatic experience or environment, and you walk away and you feel in your heart that you want to share. You want to share about the experiences, you want to share about some of the stories that you have kept hidden inside, and you never believed that one day you would share these stories. You leave this environment and you start sharing your story because you know that it's helping validate your pain, but also you know there are many out there that are continuing to suffer and are in pain, and it's almost as if you're giving a voice for them so that when they are ready to share or when they are ready to walk away or escape an environment or toxic situation, they will remember that they too can speak up and share their story. And my podcast is called Mandy Speaks Up, and I absolutely love those words because that's exactly what we're doing here. We are speaking up, and it's our own experience and our own story, and we can share it any way that we feel we want, we can, and when we are ready. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And if you are just listening in to this first episode, I'm Mandy. I escaped a traumatic environment and situation back in 2018 after 17 and a half years. I was part of a group called the Potter's House, CFM. And this environment was so extremely traumatic that I thought that I was actually going to become unalive in this environment. And I hoped and prayed that I would. So it was extremely dark. And when I walked away in 2018, I slowly began to detach from the system that they had manipulated and brainwashed inside of my mind and inside of my body, my thought process. And I began to share my story. And what I realized is when I began to share my story, I felt more free. And I was doing this because I never thought I would share my story. I thought I was going to just live my life with these hidden stories. And what I noticed right away is I had so many people begin to reach out, and they were either confirming and validating my story, or they too would share their story with me privately. And it gave them hope to know that we don't have to live in secret. We don't have to keep our pain from people and just hope that time will heal, because I learned that sharing your story actually heals you. So today's conversation I'm going to have here with an amazing guest star. She's going to be here and discuss with us about her own situation, and she's just going to chime in a lot of information that she feels she has to share with our listeners. So I just want to welcome Star. Hello.
Hi.
So
Um,
glad you're here.
I know, I'm excited too. This is a long time coming, I know. Um,
Yes. So
and
go ahead and share your story.
okay, exactly what you were saying. Like, I'm glad that you spoke up, and because, I found you and I've told you my story, of course.
Hmm.
But, I was 16, no, 15 whenever I was always in the church, but I was 16 whenever I decided to give my life to God, what I thought was giving my life to God. And I didn't have anyone who trusted me, and that's what I thought I could turn to was God. And that's what I was raised to think, that you had to do all of these conditionings and just things to be right with God, you know? And
Yes.
and I started to get older and realized things weren't connecting anymore. Like, why can't I question things anymore? And I pretty much was blaming it back on me, and I'm depressed, and they're telling me that depression isn't real. um so it just took away that pain from me. Oh, well, I can't even be depressed, so I can't even tell anyone I'm depressed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I felt like I had no help, and that was my only hope, was in this church and the people around me. And then when uh it got to the point where I couldn't pay for my tithe one month, and the pastor had called me and told me, uh, like pretty much that everything that I did and all of my ministries never really mattered because I never paid this tithe, and that I owe this a certain amount of money and that I need to pay it by Wednesday. And like that was just shocking to me because I've never thought that like the money was an issue. Like, you know what I mean? Like money isn't like an issue. Like it shouldn't be an issue with the church. Like, and according to like all of the churches that we had in the Potter's house, like not a lot of these people are well off. You know? So I don't know, but I just didn't like that. And whenever I went to go talk to a couple of people in the church about this, I'm like, I don't understand. And it's almost like they made like, yeah, that sucks, but pastor this. And I'm like, no, like pastor's not a god. Like, why are you guys all defending him? Like, we as a church should come together and like fix this issue, because I'm not the only one. Because they were telling me that these people that I was going to talk to about these things that were happening to me were telling me pretty much that, yeah, they've had similar issues, but that it's pastor at the end of the day. And like, I think the person who I was most close to, and I told them about like one of the experiences that I went through, it was just crazy to me that like instead of being a friend to me, she was telling me to keep letting it happen. And like I couldn't stand for that anymore. Like I knew something was wrong. Like I felt sick to my stomach. Like something's not right. So I started going to like talk to other people, that weren't a part of the church. Like, am I crazy? Like I feel crazy. Like that's how I feel all the time, is that I'm crazy. Like I don't know how else to explain it other than I felt crazy all the time. And then one day when I was telling my friend about some of the stories that have happened, like some of the things that have happened to me, or like just some of the rules that we had at the church, like as basic as not being able to go to the movies, she questioned me and asked me if I was part of a cult. Like she's like, it sounds like you're a part of a cult. My uncle said the same thing. Like a lot of people were saying the same thing, and I'm like, that's funny. Like you even say that, because like they joke about it all the time, it being a cult, but like, like, oh yeah, like people are gonna say it's a cult, but it's not. Like they're just mad because we're on fire for God. No.
Right.
You know the whole rundown. But finally I decided to Google it one day, and that's a big no. um and I'm finding article after article after article. I'm finding videos. I find your video, I find the Facebook page. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it broke my heart, because like I couldn't deny it anymore. Like I couldn't deny that it wasn't a cult anymore, because it's literally everywhere. And like I sent these articles to my friend, my best friend at the time, and she was like, how dare you? How dare you call it a cult? Like, my brother's in the cult, everybody, like, all these people are in the church cult, whatever. And I'm like, okay, but these stories sound just like me and your story. Like this sounds like my story. Like this sounds like what we've been going through, what we've been talking about is weird. Like, you know what I mean? And like for you to tell me and deny, like you can't deny it. Like it's all there. And then I left the church after that, because like how could I keep going to this place that I definitely know is a cult? Like I can't keep going there, because all I'm doing is hurting myself.
Yes, and
And
I
yeah,
really like how you said, all of that was going on, and it wasn't really until you spoke up and went outside of this environment that they
mm-hmm.
began to share with you. Yeah, like if you would have just kept that a secret, or kept your story to yourself instead of going and sharing, speaking up, you spoke up and you went outside of the restraints there that you had to find somebody outside of this environment. And that's when I feel like you began, from what you're saying here, is you began to received the messages of people going, wait, like, are you in a cult? Like, this doesn't sound
Yeah.
right. Like, and then your story became validated instead of
Mm-hmm.
staying in the environment. Everybody was pretty much thinking and saying the same thing and telling you just to suck it up. It's going to be okay. Pray about it. Or
Yeah.
it's because you're not giving more money, you're not tithing, and it was all according to their own rules. So I like how you chose to do that, because it can take a lot of people years to speak up, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a cult. It can be, an abusive relationship. It can be a
Yeah.
family life. It can be something where you're going through so much and you don't want to speak up, and it's not until you speak up that you begin to get validation from others, and that's what gives you the courage. So I really feel that probably what gave you a lot more courage to finally
No,
leave.
it did. It definitely did. And like even having those friends outside of the church, and like because now I can have people that I can actually count on, like because whenever I left the church it's so hard, and I know because it's like you do want to go back, like because these people have been like your family, because you kind of ditch your family to hang out with these people, like because that's what they're telling you to do. So it's like almost like this pain, like you want to go back but it's not good for you, just like how you said, like a toxic relationship, literally.
It definitely is. It the signs are all there, how you leave and come back, and we watched this happen in this environment that we were in. We seen people leave and come back, leave and come back, and of course they have the reasons of why they left. Oh, it's because they're sinners. It's because they backslid, and they use
Mhm.
all these words. But at the end of the day, it's these very similar to somebody who's in a toxic or abusive relationship, and they leave and come back. They leave, the statistics are there, and that is
Yeah.
why there are shelters and homes for, especially specifically speaking about like women who leave relationships and then they go back, and there's domestic violence homes for that. There are places, there are safe
Mhm.
homes for them. And think about it, this environment has the same like control factor of leave and come back. And when you leave, there is not a home for you to go to. And if you're
No.
isolated, if you're shunned from your family, if they shun you from the community and you have nowhere to go, you have no money, chances that you're going to come back are very high because you have nowhere else to go.
Yep. Exactly.
And for those that want to know the environment that we escaped and left from by our own choice, how can it be considered a cult? And I just want to share a little bit, because we have professionals here that speak up about environments like this. And it's known as the BITE model, so the BITE model. And the B stands for behavior, the I is information, the T is thought, and the E is emotion. And this is how you can tell if any environment has a control factor to it, or cult like factors to it. And you can find that online at freedomofmind.com with the bite model here. But if they're regulating your behavior, if they are giving you information control, right? So withholding
Mhm.
information, or telling you don't listen to the internet, or don't listen to this podcast.
Don't listen
uh,
to secular music.
right. Thought
Uh,
control, requiring members to internalize the group's doctrine as truth. That's thought control.
mhm.
And then emotional control. So they're manipulating and narrowing the range of feelings, emotions, or needs that you have, and they're deeming that as evil, wrong, or selfish, or sinful,
Mm.
causing guilt, promoting unworthiness. So this is just some of the list here of how something, an environment, a relationship, a situation can have this control. And so even basing it off this, it checks all the boxes.
Yep, for sure. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was gonna say, like, a lot of people will say, like, this is witchcraft. Like, us talking up is just witchcraft. Like, or even us calling it a cult, which, like, a lot of people don't even know the definition of a cult. And
Mm,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
But
And the definition of a cult is a system of devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. So it doesn't necessarily have to be religious,
mhm.
but it can be a small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange. That's a definition. And when you think of cults, you think of like Satan worshiping cults. You think
Yes,
of,
a
you
cult.
know,
Yeah.
it's so crazy because it's like if you just take a group of if you take that definition of a group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange, just think about how many people that you talk to that are outside of this group and you tell them the things that you experienced, the things that you've seen, the things,
Mhm.
and they'll literally look at you with their eyes really big, the jaw will drop, and they'll go, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, and
Yep.
and it'll make you go, this happened to me just yesterday. I opened up to somebody, my story is very public, but there are people that don't know me, so they don't know much about my story. So yesterday I had someone who knows me really good by this point, and I haven't shared with them this story. So I just began to share a little bit about it, a little bit
Mhm.
about my everyday life, going into this environment, them marrying me off or encouraging me to get married very, very young. Um, and then my life after that. And I'm sharing this story. And this woman who's about like 70 years old is like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, she's like, "What?" Like, the way that she was looking at me and the way that her facial expressions were. And I'm sitting there going, "Yeah, like, really? Like, does it sound that bad?" Because the way that she was looking at me was like, and she's 70. She's lived life. She's had
Yeah.
experiences of her own. But for her, but she's standing there in awe, like, "Oh my gosh." And then she's looking at me like this. And then later on, I'm thinking, damn, was it really that bad? Like, I know that it was bad, but
Mhm.
when you speak up and share your story to outsiders that have never experienced stuff like this, they're like, "What? This can't be
Yes.
going on." And it's still going on.
Yep. Definitely. It's crazy because like, people that I've known and I'm, like, telling them my experiences too, they're like, "I would have never known." I'm like, "I know. That's why I have to tell people because, like, it's still going on until this, like, place is, like." I mean, they're already deemed a cult and, like, they haven't shut down yet, you know? Like, so until this place is done, like, I'm gonna continue to share my story and talk about it. And, I've had people come to
Yeah.
me too and, like, tell me their stories, and it's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. People that I've known, like, people that I knew, telling me their stories was crazy to me, like, and powerful to me. Like, I felt like there was a reason why, like, they're telling me this story. Like, I have to keep talking because these people don't have voices, and I'm sure that's how you feel too. Like, these girls don't have voices, so somebody has to stand up and do it.
Yeah, and when we're sharing, when I started sharing my story, I didn't share it for any other purpose because at that point I didn't know there were a lot of others out there going through similar experiences from this environment. And I didn't know. I just wanted to share my story. And like I said, when I began to share my story and people's eyeballs just got so big and they were just like, "Whoa, like you survived what? This
Mhm.
was not normal." And that's when I learned it wasn't normal. I remember going to a therapist after and sitting there and talking with some of the things that I went through, and this was our first session, and I remember her looking at me and all she could say was, "I'm so sorry." And she just kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." And I'm sitting there going, "What? It's that bad?" Like why does she have to keep saying sorry? Like, she was so
Yeah.
compassionate. I had not experienced that. The 17 and a half years that I was inside of this environment, I did not experience compassion like that. I did not experience somebody sitting there and validating my story and my pain. And she's sitting there and all she's saying is, "I'm sorry." And just her saying that brought relief, brought comfort, brought
Yeah.
support into my life because I was like, this is my story that I've been hiding for all these years. So I'm really proud that you wanted to share just to share your story and to know that there are others out there that may be in the same environment we were in, or just in not just, but in another emotionally, even if it's just emotional, because I feel like this environment was very psychologically abusive,
Mhm.
and a lot. I just remember thinking that I thought abuse was just when somebody hit you. Like I literally thought like that was abuse. I didn't know that it was also emotional and psychological. And that's what makes it really hard to leave any kind of relationship or environment that's not physically abusive, because you're not getting bruises on your body physically, but the wounds and the bruises are internal. They're in your
Mhm.
mind, they're in your heart, they're inside of you. And there are those that have left this environment and they have been diagnosed with PTSD. So it is a real thing.
No, for sure. For sure. Like you hit the nail like right on it. Like
Yeah,
ugh. And like also like the people who still go there and like they see these videos of us, and they'll comment like all these things, like trying to invalidate our feeling and invalidate what actually happened to us. Like
exactly.
take a step back real fast and be like, okay, are any of these points that I have mentioned, like, do you not see any of these in the day-to-day pattern? Because I did when I was still there, but I didn't want to admit it to myself because I knew if I left, like leaving was me saying I don't believe in God anymore to them. And you know what I mean? Like that was like me saying I don't love God, I don't want to be part of God at all. Or like just leaving in general was like I'm just a horrible sinner.
Yeah, you're an outsider
Yeah.
because you
And like,
become
oh, I'm sorry.
because you just become part of you're not in their structure anymore and in their group.
Yeah. But I also hate how like these people will say that like they don't shun. It is practice. It's practice over the pulpit. It's practice. It's literally happened to me. Like it happens to almost everybody who leaves. It's like unsaid, but like whenever you come back, oh, here they go. Like here, we're ready to love bomb you again. Like no, and then when you see them in person too, it's like, "Oh, like what have you been up to?" But you know this whole time that they're talking behind your back because you used to do the same thing. Well, not really me, but like I've heard it happen to everybody else who left. Like so I knew what it was to leave. And I think that's what a lot of people are scared to like admit to themselves is that you know what your outcome is going to be when you leave, so you don't ever leave.
Yeah, and that's part of the manipulation process as well, you
Yeah.
know. And also, like a cult is can be an organization or an atmosphere that refers to a group that exhibits excessive devotion to a single leader or set of ideas.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be religious like we were in. It can be anything that's just excessive devotion to a single leader or a set of ideas, and their ideas were set in stone. You were not going to go around those. If
Yeah.
you did, then you would be an outsider, you'd be looked down upon, you would be guilted, shamed. So it makes sense why you would just get back into line. If you can just get back in line,
Mhm.
then you can avoid being shunned, you can avoid being ridiculed, humiliated, disciplined, the word that they would use, and you would be able to just continue to be in the community. Love bombing is part of the community. They will love, they will teach you how to love on you. And for those that times back you, they begin bombing process with you, that you keep leaving and coming back. But it's a good thing that they are leaving. But again, they have nowhere to go, or they don't have much community outside of this environment, especially if you've been isolated.
Exactly.
They have nowhere to go. There's not there's not like this safe house. Like I don't even know honestly if there is a like 800 cult number that you can call and be like, hey, I just left a cult. I have nowhere to go. I have no money. Can you help me? Like I don't even know if that exists.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, so I'm just glad that there are people out there that like they are willing to share their story. And we're sharing our story for no other reason but to share that there is peace and hope at the end of coming at the end of that. Like you can leave and live in freedom, you know, that I've been out since 2018 and no lie, that first 5 years was probably one of the hardest things, going through extreme healing. And today I'm at a place where I am above all of it. I now share my story to show others that if your environment, you can walk away from any environment, start anew, whether it's a job, whether it's an environment, whether it's a church. You can leave, you can walk away, you can start over. There is nobody or nothing that can force you to stay in an environment. And yes, you leave safely. So there are environments that you can't just get up and leave. You
Yeah.
can't. There are people who are in relationships and they can't just leave because that would interfere with their safety. And so you have to be careful, right? I was so fearful to leave. Were you terrified to leave?
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. Like, I had people showing up at my house too, like trying to get us to come back. But you know what? You reach out if you have no idea how to get out, talk to other people. Like, I'm not kidding you, communicate with other people. Like, connect with your family again. Like, tell them what's going on because those are the people who are going to keep you accountable from not going back to them. You know, like not going back to the abuser. Like, you cannot
Mm,
go back. Like, there's no turning back once you leave. Don't turn back because let me tell you something, like my mindset has been so much better. Like I no longer like really, well, I do still, get a little depressed here and there, but like that's life, that's normal. I didn't know that was normal though. Like it's just okay to be normal. Like things happen, like it's okay to be normal. It's okay to have freedom and to be a little selfish sometimes because we all deserve that. Like we all deserve that.
yes, do what's best for your mental health.
Yes. And like even leaving now too, it's like I get to experience life like from a whole new like lens. Like things that I've never got to experience before. Like and it's so crazy because I'm older, like but I've never got to go to like concerts or like I never got to go to a bar. Like I never got to experience those experiences and it's like I'm doing everything for the first time.
Mm,
And it's exciting, but it's also scary, but it's exciting because like I get to live my own life now how I want to live it.
yes.
And I have that freedom now.
Oh my gosh, I love it. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in my 30s and I've just done things for the first time. And it's almost, I feel like a teenager. I went in when I was 16. And when
Mhm.
you first leave, it's like you're 16 again. You're like, it's like you're the age that you
Literally.
were when
Oh my,
you,
that's crazy. That is so true. That is so
yeah.
true. Yes. Oh my gosh, cuz whenever I started, I was 16, so I feel like I never got to experience anything like my 21st birthday, like I never got to
Mm,
experience that. Like or like just a little thing as simple as a concert. I've never been to a concert. Like these are all
mm,
exciting new experiences that I get to have now and like have no like nobody coming behind me being like you're such a sinner. You know what I mean?
mm.
Like I don't have to worry about those things anymore.
That's so freedom. That's so much freedom.
I know.
I'm so happy for you. I love that.
I know. I'm so happy too.
Yeah. So many things that we get to do for the first time. It was like, I remember when I first left and meeting people, and I'd go do things for the first time, and they would literally know my story at that point, and they would just be like, "We just love watching you. We just love watching you. You're like a kid who's just, come out, and it's just like this little kid running around, enjoying the outside after, they'd been." inside for, locked up inside. And
Mm-hmm.
there I was running around in freedom. And you're going to make mistakes. Guess what? It's okay to make mistakes. You're going to do things that you're like, oh fuck, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Guess what? It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is okay. That's what is one of the first blockages in the mind is, oh wait, I can't fuck up. I can't make mistakes. I have to be perfect. Or not, I'm going to be condemned or I'm going to be cursed. The fact that you walked away and you're okay, you're not cursed, man. You the decisions that you make, you create your own life with it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you create your life. You get to create your joy, your happiness, your peace. You get to create that, and when you begin to create that, the universe gives you more of it, more experience of that. I mean, it's just
Mm-hmm.
amazing the more you grow and learn.
No, definitely.
So what is like something the biggest mind shift that has happened to you since leaving?
You know what's crazy is I was thinking about this, and I think it's honestly like, as a woman, you're told not to like, you can't speak up. Like being a woman in the church, you're only there to have babies. Like you're only there to have babies and to take care of your husband, to go to church, submit. Like I didn't know that I could have a whole career. Like I missed out on going to college because I thought that what I was doing was right. Like I was supposed to be this wife and I'm supposed to have these kids, and the fact that I couldn't get pregnant either was also like a thing in the back of my head, like, oh my God, I'm not, like I can't like I must be wrong with God because I can't even have a kid. Like, and
Oh,
that's
it's
so
terrible.
true. Like that's so not true. Like I'm worth so much more than that. So I'm guess so I guess what I needed to say is self-worth, because I didn't know how much I was really worth, even though they'll teach you, self-worth. I had no self-worth. That's why I had to submit to everybody else, cuz I didn't know how to, like, I didn't know how to tell myself anything or to treat myself.
That's good. You
You
didn't
know?
know how to treat yourself, so you let them treat you anyway, and you thought that was
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and that's not okay. Like, and I'm proud of myself now because I didn't even know I could have the mindset that I have now, that I have everything that I want and I'm going to have everything that I want. Like even as simple as my words, like, have changed. I'm more positive than I've ever been my whole life. Like I don't look at things the way I used to anymore. Like, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for my experience because it got me to where I am now. But other than that, like I won't go back to that. And I will continue to speak up for those who can't. And like I will continue to encourage people, like, if you're going through this, even if like you said, like an abusive relationship, whatever it is that's the abuser, just don't go back, because there's nothing, you're not benefiting from it. At the end of the day, you're only hurting yourself.
Oh my gosh, powerful message to get to the end of this talk. Speaking up again, speaking up is going to bring power. Is going to bring empowerment, especially as a woman. It's going to help you feel that you can make your own way without asking for somebody else to make your decisions for you. You
No,
you can make your own decisions. You are smart enough and and on the case of like having children, you don't have to have children if you don't want. Like, and you
yeah.
don't have to get married if you don't want, and you don't have to look like society and culture or religion or your group, whatever it is. Tell these set of ideas. At the end of the day, it's a set of ideas. I don't care if you say there's a book that tells
Hmm.
you. Guess what? Not everybody's going to believe in that book. And guess what? That doesn't make them wrong, because at the end of the day, it's still just a book. I don't care how you see it. I don't care if you see your set of ideas as the main truth. At the end of the day, it's not.
Yep.
It's not. Because my truth can look different than your truth. And guess what? We're sitting here having a conversation. We can get along. We can love each other. We can support each other. It does not
Mhm.
necessarily mean that I believe what you believe what I believe. It doesn't mean that. It just means that we're human beings who we're sharing our pain, but we're also sharing our hope, and we're sharing that there is life and there's light at the end of that tunnel. There is life
Oh my God,
after
definitely.
a relationship or an environment that traumatized the hell out of you. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to believe that environment is toxic, if you're in this environment or you're in an environment that has hurt you over and over and over, but you still don't want to admit that it's hurt you, that's okay. You can do that. That is okay. But at the end of the day, if somebody is sharing their story, if somebody is sharing their story and saying that it did hurt them, that it traumatized them, guess what? Just like you can believe that you're not hurt and you're okay in that environment, we are okay to speak up and say, we were hurt, we were traumatized. It's okay. Like, let us speak our
Mm-hmm.
story, just like you can share anybody can share their story about whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be a painful story. You want to share your story, you can, but you can't not validate us. Like, either, you know, turn off the podcast or something, but like, our story is still meaningful to us, even if it didn't happen to you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So do you want to end with anything else? You want to say anything, share anything? This is your time to shine.
I think that's it, really. Like, just, at the end of the day, like what you said too, like, don't invalidate what's actually going on to these people. Like, if this is my experience, it's nobody else's experience. You could say that it didn't happen, but at the end of the day, it did. Like, because I'm sharing it. You can't invalidate that. But also, if you do need help, I think that you definitely should reach out to people and like get the heck out of there. Get out of that, because it's not going to do anything. But that's really it. I think that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on
thank
here and
you.
just talking with me.
Of course.
And I just hope that if anybody's listening and if they are in any environment that is emotionally, psychologically abusive in any way, that they will, research and find the help around them that they can safely,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just somebody that's outside of the environment, because usually those are the ones that are going to help you the most and really validate your story and your pain and can find help for you too. Um, there's so many people that have helped me throughout my time of leaving. So many people, whether it was just saying I'm sorry, even though they were not involved in any way, and they said I'm sorry that you had to experience that. Even in that, the most you can do, if there's nothing that you can do when you hear somebody sharing their painful story, if there is nothing you can say, I think the least you can do is just say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Authentically, saying it authentically, not trying to rise up and say why it's not true.
Yep.
Because
Exactly.
if it is true and what they're saying is true, you speaking up against it is like, it's doing so much more pain. It's more painful, and I feel like that causes people not want to speak up. Nobody's gonna believe me. Nobody's gonna believe me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Star, and thank you all so much, listeners. Please, if you are listening or if you're watching, share this video with anybody that you feel it may help. And until next time on my next episode, I'm Mandy Speaks Up. I'm Mandy. Thank you.